Mitzvoso shel ner Chanukah, mishtashk'a החמה עד שתכלה רגל מן השוק. The Rebbe said this on Zois Chanukah in the year Tovshin Lamed Ches, and this is a follow-up, as they say here in the note, to the Maimer that started with Tana Rabbon and Mitzvahs Ner Chanukah, which together they came out in a booklet in the Kuntras Chanukah Tovshin Mem Zayin as Erev Chanukah Tei Zushnas Mashiach, as it's brought down here in the bottom. And this is a follow-up to that Maimer. All right, so let's do Saiti Dishmaya, Zeis Chanukah, Hey Tovshin Lamed Ches. So this is brought down from the Gemara in Shabbos. It talks about the lights of Chanukah. So it says mitzvoso, that the mitzvah, which we're talking about, the mitzvah of Ner Chanukah, Shel Ner Chanukah, is mishtashk'a hachama. It starts from sunset, and it goes ad until shetichla regel min hashuk chulu, until the feet are no longer in the marketplace, meaning everybody left the marketplace, chulu, etc. And the Gemara articulates later on, ad the kalya rigla ditar moidoi, until the feet of the tar moidoi. They were a nation. They used to sell wood. They used to linger in the marketplace. So they stayed there longer. So until they finish, there's still people in the marketplace. So until they finish, that's the time to light the menorah. After they finish already, there's nobody there to be mefarsim the nest to, because everybody's gone. But until the kalya rigla de tar meidoi is that you have the mitzvah to light the ner Chanukah. And we'll see soon, the rigla de tar meidoi also has a very significance. It has we learned also in the previous mimer that it has the letters of Moiredis, meaning either you do away with the rebellion against Hashem, and or you bring them to a level of kiloyim. Look inside. So it's explained in the Mamorim from our Rebbes, our leaders. Hachiluk, there's the difference. Shebeneres Chanukah, leneres Hamigdosh, veneres Shabbos. We have the natives that we light on Chanukah, and then we had the natives that we lit in the Beis Hamikdash, and the latest and the lights of Shabbos. They all have different times. They're not at the same time. The natives Hamikdash, the natives Shabbos, the light of the Mikdash, the menorah in the Beis Hamikdash, and also the light we do on Shabbos, Zman Hadla Kosam Hu Mib'ed Yom. When do you light them? Both of them, side the natives Mikdash and Shabbos, you light them while it's still daytime. The natives Hamikdash Hidliku Miplaga Mincha. The natives in the Beis Hamikdash were lit from half Mincha, which is an hour and a quarter, Shehu Harbe, which is a lot, Shovrevi, it's an hour and a quarter, Koidem Shkiyas Achama. That is an hour and a quarter before Shkiyas Achama. So it's a lot before Shkiyas Achama. And also, native Shabbos, Vegam, native Shabbos, and also the light of Shabbos, Tzorich La'adlikom Koidem Shkiyas Achama. We need to light them before the sun sets. Mitzat Shmira Shabbos, because you're keeping Shabbos. You can't light the lights of Shabbos, the native Shabbos, after Shkia, because that would be violating the Shabbos already. If you're keeping Shabbos, you have to do it before Shkia. Mashenki, Ner Chanukah, as opposed to the light of Chanukah, mitzvoso hi mishtashk'a hachama. Over here, the mitzvah is, as we just quoted from the Gemara, when the sun sets. After the sun sets. Seems a little bit strange. The whole reason for setting up the Ner Chanukah, the whole reason of Ner Chanukah is because of the Neiros in the Beis Hamikdash, but yet the Neiros in Beis Hamikdash was done an hour and a quarter before Shkia, and this is done after Shkia. The Hagam, the Ner Chanukah. Although this that they instituted the Chanukah light, that is because of the miracles that took place in the lamps of the Mikdash, V'im came. And in that case, since we were lighting the Ner Chanukah because of the Ner the Mikdash, it would be fit so that the time for lighting the Chanukah light should be at the same time as the lights of the Mikdash. Ubefrat, especially we have a rule that even when the Rabbanon came up with a new takona, something instituted, something new, but generally they followed the path the way it was done from the Torah. So if the lighting of the Torah is done an hour and a quarter before Shkia, why would the Chachamim institute, they don't follow when the generally befrat the kol the tikkun Rabbanon kein the raisa tikkun? We have this rule that whatever the Rabbanon are misakin, when they institute, it is similar to the Torah. And yet we say, mitzvah seidavke mishtashk'a hachama. The mitzvah of the Ner Chanukah is davke specifically when the sun sets. And it's known the explanation that when we look about the period of time, the history of Hanukkah was while the Yidden were in exile, even though they had the Beis Hamikdash, but they were under the Greek at that time. It's called the dark time, that the idea of the Ner Chanukah is to illuminate the darkness. It's known, the explanation in this, she'inyan mishatishka hachamo koyi al zman hagolus, that the idea, the concept, when the sun sets, that refers to the time of exile. That's the time when the sun has set. Shenikra b'shem choshech. The time of golus is called dark. That means when the sun sets, it's light, not light outside. V'asiba l'choshech hagolus hi. And what's the cause, the reason for this darkness of the exile is that it's the spiritual darkness. That is the idea of sins. Sins are the spiritual darkness because sins, that's the opposite. Mitzvah is the lamp and Torah is the light, but when there is a sin, there is no mitzvah, there's no light of the mitzvah, no lamp of the mitzvah, no light of the Torah, so it's dark. It's a choshech ruchnis. And that spiritual darkness brings about the exile. As we say in the davening, that it is because of our sins that we were exiled. This is the idea that the Chanukah lamps mitzvah is once the sun sets. Because the idea of the Chanukah lamp is to illuminate the darkness of the exile. Sharei, because that's actually when the miracle of Hanukkah took place. It was a very dark Golus at the time. Sharei Azman, the Neis Hanukkah, because the time when the miracle of Hanukkah took place, although then the Beis Hamikdash was in existence, it's still called Golus. It's called the Golus Yovan. It's referred to as the exile of the Greek. Especially in those days, that was before the miracle. So is Gabrus Achishach. So there was the Golus Yovan, but especially that period specifically, in the time that before the Neis, there was a overpowering of darkness. Okay, move on. The nusach Ba'al Hanisim, it's understood from the language that we do. Ba'al Hanisim, Godel HaTzoris V'chulu Shahoyu Oz, the great troubles that was then when the Nace of Hanukkah took place. So there was a dark time. Golus, even though the Beis Hamikdash was there, it was a dark time. That period was an increasing darkness. As we see the great troubles in the Nusach HaNisim. This is also why we say you start Mishkir Zachama, but the time is Ad Shetichla Regel Min Hashuk, until the feet are no longer in the marketplace. And we said that the Kalio Rigla the Tarmudoi, until the feet of this Tarmudoi are no longer there. The Tarmudoi, the Taiches over here, comes from rebellion, level Moiredis, Tarmud Losh Moiredis. Tarmudoi is Heim Hamoridim B'Malchus Shamayim. Those are those who rebel against the heavenly kingdom. As the word Tarmudoi, Tarmud has Oishish Meredis. Tarmud has the same letters as Meredis. And these Tarmudoi Veheim is Akvim B'Shuk. And they are delayed and they hang around in the market. What is the Shuk represents? V'chinas Rishus Arabim Turei de Pruda. That's the level of Rishus Arabim, which is called the mountains of separation, which represents the clippers. And they hang around with the clippers and they rebel. And what are we supposed to do? So we have the two interpretation in until Kalya Rigla Tarmudoi. What does it mean? First of all, it's brought down in the previous Maimer, Oir de Neir Chanukah, Mechalo Mevatel Es Rigla de Tarmudoi, that the light of the Chanukah lamp destroys and negates these feet of the Tarmudoi. So Kalya is from the Lashon, that it destroys it so that they won't interfere. The Ner Chanukah illuminates so that it destroys and gets rid of the Tarmudoi. Or also, the Ner Chanukah, that the Ner Chanukah poil inyan hakiloyin. This idea of expiring to Kedusha, Gam berigla de Tarmudoi, also in the feet of Tarmudoi, that they too should be in the level of Kiloyin, that is Kalya, bringing them to the level of Kiloyin. Shegam Hamoirdim, that also those who rebel, the Tarmudoi is Batlu, shall be negated, v'yishapchu, and turned around, v'yavoyu l'chlois hanefesh, that they too should come to the expiration of the soul to the highest level. But to such an extent that when they turn around and they become a loshon of kiloyin, they become expired to Hashem, shatzimoyin v'hakiloyin shalem u'biyasaros. Their thirst and their expiration is with more force. Okay, Yadua, and like it's known, shatzimoyin shel bal tshuva u'biyaser oz mitzimoyin atzadikim. Known that the thirst of a bal tshuva is with more force than the thirst of a tzaddikim. Because the advantage of light, the greatness of light, is when it comes dafka from darkness. Base. So we're going to say now that everything comes from Kedusha. Even the things that have fallen down and into the other side, they originate in Kedusha. And sometimes it can descend a gradual way. Sometimes there's like a totally breakaway until they fall into the lowest places, and still there is a godly spark there to be elevated. Basically, behold, it's known. Everything that exists in the world. Also the other side. Has a beginning, it all begins and it has a root in Kedusha. We say to Mizeh Razal, and even more than this, the Gemara in Chulin says that Ein Oid Milvadei, there is nobody besides Hashem, which would include Bafilu Shofim, even sorcery, Shemakchishim Pamalia Shel Milo, which contradict, deny the heavenly academy. They don't believe, is also in Oid Milvadei. So means that they too have a connection, a root there. Elo, but that descent, how it descends, depends. Sheyesh devarim sheyi efsher sheyumshechu mimkoyram al yidei hishtalshus. There are some items that it's impossible for them to be extended from their source through a hishtalshulus, through an evolution which is an orderly, a connected together. They can't come directly. Even if you would make a chain reaction, you would make a cause and effect, many steps, a lot of steps, still they can't come down. You besides grading in a gradual way, you also need an interruption or a restriction or a curtain or a break, somewhere to stop that chain reaction in order to jump over to create this level which is sort of detached from the high, not in a chain, not linked, but detached through either a hefsek, an interruption, or a tzimtzum, or a restriction, masach, or a curtain, or shura break. So from this we understand, as it relates to the above matters, which is the mishtashk'a hachama. We talk about the time when the sun sets, when we talk about a shuk, a marketplace, and we talk about tarmudoi, those rebellious. So we're talking about the negative, shas chalosam umekoyram bekedusha, where they begin and where their source is in kedusha. Hello, shaboyim al yidei tzimtzum v'hefsek v'chulu. It's just that the way they come out, they come, even though they come from Kedusha, but they don't come direct, but they come through this restriction, interruption, and Ashvira. It gives an example, Bedugmas Inyan Pare, similar to the idea of Pare. Shebe Parsha Seinu. This is talking about in the Parshas Vayigash. Shebe Shorshoy, who Inyan Achinayla B'Kedusha. When you look at the root of Paroi, in Paroi's root, he is something very distinct, elevated in Kedusha. So you gotta see that while Paroi in this world was a Rasha and big in a Klippa, but yet in his root, he has a very high root, an elevated root in Kedusha. Kiyadua, as it's known, that Shepare, that Pare means to open up. Who the Isperiu the Isgalian Minei Kol Nehirin. In the Lashon, the Kabbalah, that from him, it's a level of Pare in which it opens up and is revealed. All the lights come from there. It's an open light. So Pare is the source from which all lights are opened up. And yet, through the multiple evolution, the multiple chain, the descent and the breakage, then you get a Pari, the king of Egypt. In this world, Hatanim, as the Pasuk refers to him, in the Navi, Hatanim Hagodel, the great fish, who kneels within his river of Omer, and he says, Li Ya'iri, the river belongs to me, I made myself. He denies totally the Eibishter of any power above. He just says about himself. So therefore, you see how some level which is so high ends up in a very low negative on the other side totally. And this alone, the fact that they had fallen so low, that is evidence that their root is a very elevated source. Because we know the whole Hagavoya, Gavoya Yoser, Yored Lamata Mata Yoser. Anything that is higher and higher, more higher, goes down more lower, goes down lower. The fact that you see such a descent, it means they must come from very high, because only the very high come down so low. So because we're saying that there's such a high source, through sorting out those matters that fell very low, as for example, the sorting out the pari, such a low level that only Moshe Rabbeinu can sort them out. And also Moshe Rabbeinu had been given a special power to sort out and to control pari. Boil pari. The Eibusha says, "Come to pari." That's a special command. So these items that have been fallen so low, misalim hem the shorsham shu gavoya beyoser. They are elevated to their root, which is very, very high. And more than this, and more than this. So first of all, because they come from a very high source, so therefore they go up to a very high source. But not only do they go up to the very high source, they go even higher than where they come from. And more than this, since every descent is for the purpose of an elevation, so their elevation after being sorted out, so they are on a higher level more than they were before, than the root before they fell in descent. Because otherwise, what was the descent? Descent is a purpose of an elevation. So it means not only do they go up to their source, but they go up even into a higher source. And based on this, we understand Mashemuva, that's brought down Be'inyan Mishtashk'a Chama. We bring down with regards to this idea that when the sun sets, it's brought down the Maimer HaZoyar, the saying of the Zoyar, and the Pasuk in Kehela says, Ve'el Mekoimoi Shoyev Zoreh Husham. He yearns for his place, and that's where he shines. So what does the Zohar say in this pasuk? He says, Kad ozil shimsho le'mayriv, as the sun sets to mayriv, That means it goes El Mekoimei. Hai Ma'ariv Ikra Mekoimei Deshimsho. So the west, the Ma'ariv, that's called the place of the sun. El Mekoimei Shoyev. He goes to his place, yearns his place. And then he shines there. What does this mean? So it's known, the explanation of this Zoyar and the Pasuk. Ma'ariv hu Malchus. When we say the west represents Malchus. Kamaimer, like we say, Shechina b'Ma'ariv, that the Shechina is in the west. So what does it mean? V'kad ozil shimshol le'Ma'ariv. And the Zohar says that the sun goes to the west. Who hamshochas v'yiridas zo, which is shemesh b'Malchus. Zeir Ampin, the Zoh, the Midas of Atzilus, are considered the sun. And Malchus is in Ma'ariv. So when the sun comes to the level of Malchus, and not only in Malchus, but also to the level of Malchus, Adba HaMalchus, K'moisha Nasis Moker Libya, to Malchus as Malchus becomes a source for Biyah. One part of Malchus that it's the lowest sphere within Atzilus, but then the other aspect of Malchus that it becomes a source for Bri Yitzira Asiya. So the sun, the Zoh, comes down to Malchus as Malchus to the extent in which Malchus become a Moker Libya. Until the light of Atzilus sets, like the sun, it sets in there. And still, that west is called Mekoimei. As the Zohar says. That's its place. How could that be the place of the Shimsha? It seems like a descent. Because this is really the real place of the Shemesh of Zog Atzilus is for coming down in Biyah. Because the Akavona Amitis, the true intent in the fact of separation of bringing in Atzilus, creating Atzilus, is for the creation of Bri Yitzirasiyah. To the extent that it's Davke in Biyah is where he shines. That the main and the true idea of shining is Davke in the Bri Yitzirasiyah Davke. It shines in Biyah. That's the place. As it's explained in the holy Sefer Tanya, that when we talk about the higher elements beyond Bri Yitzirasiyah, you talk about the spiritual supreme worlds, there are Yerida Meir Ponav Yisbarach. It's a descent from the light of his blessed face. It's a descent from Hashem. As opposed to the worlds of Bri Yitzirasiyah. And within Bri Yitzirasiyah, Befrat, especially this low, our world, the low world, which there is nothing lower than it. Nasim Dira Lo Yisbarach. They become a dwelling place for him, blessed. This world, the world becomes mamish a dwelling place for the essence for Hashem, for Panav Yisbarach comes down. This is similar. We're making for him adira. Adira means by similar to the dwelling place of the person, that the essence of the person, the essence of the person lives in that dwelling place. So when we make a dira for Hashem, Hashem lives here. So we see that this is really the goal and the purpose of everything is dafke in biyah, dafke in asiyah. And to the extent making the dira in asiyah. To the extent Shekiyadu has known that yesh hanivra, the created yesh that is never shebahar goshosoi mitziusei me'atzmusei, in his feeling, his existence comes from himself. He doesn't see somebody vitalizes him. He just sees himself as an entity from himself. So this is similar to the true entity, which is Hashem. So meaning that in this world which we have, a Yesha Nivra, it is associated to the Yeshua Amiti. And this is why Ner Chanukah, the mitzvah is when the sun sets. Ki inyan Ner Chanukah hu lahoir hachoshech debiyah. Because the idea of Ner Chanukah is when the sun sets, because Ner Chanukah is to illuminate the darkness of Biyah, which is Shkiyas Hashemesh Havayid Atzilus. That is darkness, that is the sun sets, the Havayid Atzilus set, that you don't see it. So what does Ner Chanukah do is to illuminate it, to take away the darkness, to illuminate the darkness. Sha'al Yidei Zed Dafke through the Ner Chanukah, through illuminating the darkness, Nasa Hazricha, that brings about the shining. Until we bring the level of the revelation and the dwelling place of the Atzmus, as I said before. And now it goes further. So here we're talking about just the fact that in the world there is a helam, there is a lack, the shkias hachama, the sun sets, you don't feel. There's a sense of a mitzius matzmusa. He's going to go further that when the sun set, there's actually a creation of klippas, of negativity, opposition to godliness. Dalit. And we can say that the inyan mishetishka chamo lemata yeser, the idea when the sun sets on a lower, even lower, koi al his havus aklippas, that refers to, that talks about the bringing about the creation of the klippas. Shkia sheloi be'erech da'ira kedusha. That is such a sunset that is so set, it is totally uncomparable to the light of kedusha. A tremendous distance. And I'm using the same reasoning that we say before. The one, the higher, more. Goes lower and lower. Kinal Sibes, as we said earlier in Sibes. So then when you can shine, you can illuminate, bring light, which comes through this setting, that would be a shining of a greater, more elevated light, gam mehazricha, even then that shining, then the setting that we talked about, that the Shemesh Havayid Atzilus set is not felt in Bri Yitzir Asiyah, but over here we're not even feeling it until it comes down even below into the klippas. So there's a greater setting. So then there is, when you shine, you reach even a higher level. And this would be similar to the elevation Shabishavus Hayesh Debiyah Haproti, the elevation that takes place in getting the specific entities of Biyah, which is a shkias atzilas haprotis, that is the personal or the detailed setting of atzilus. So in that case, there is a greater elevation that comes when you light the personal shkia ala iludis havus bia haklolim, over the advantage. That's more the creation of bia klolim shkias atzilus haklolis, which generally creating the world, and you don't feel anymore, but there is a greater ilui in creating the specifics, because through the creation of the specific yesh, through that mizgala koyach ha'atzmus, that's how you get revealed the power of atzmus. Ubebiyah gufa iker gilu koyach ha'atzmus hu bisavus hayesh hagashmi davke. So there is what we say biyah, generally they created. So there's a setting that he created Bri Yitzirasiya, that the Zoh of Atzilus came down to Malchus to create Bri Yitzirasiya, and it had to set to create Bri Yitzirasiya. But then when we talk about inside Bri Yitzirasiya specifically, there's a greater revelation. And that's why when we talk about biyah generally, the main revelation of the power of the Atzmus is the Yesh Hagashmi Dafke in Asiya, in the entity of the physical entity. And over there, we say that's associated to Gavoya Gavoya B'Yeser, to the Yesh HaMiti. Ukamaimer, and like we say, that the descent into the klippas brings even a higher level of elevation. We say kadis kafia sidra achra istalik yikore de kucha b'richu b'kul ho'almim, that when you subdue the other side, the klippas, then the glory of Hashem enters. It uses the word istalik, as the Rebbe will point out. The glory of Hashem comes in the kuchabrichu kulav in all the world. It's a kind of a light which is called istalik, because it doesn't really come down. It's too high to come down. The al yidei zeh sheyesh mitzias the sitra achra, through the fact that there is an existence of the other side, that takes place al yidei shkiyas shemesh the kedusha, by the setting of the sun of kedusha. You don't see the kedusha. And then you light it up by, you shine it, you take away that choshech. Either first by subduing the other side, and then by turning around the other side. Then you bring down, you extend a revelation of a very great elevated light. Such a great light which cannot even come down revealed. That's why we call it removed. You get the anistalic oir, an oir which is higher. And dafke, through this, when you subdue the sitra achra, you turn sitra achra around, nishlemes hakavona shenisava kodesh baruch hu. This completes the intent which Hashem intended, desired, to have for him a dwelling place in this world below. And in order for this intent to be fulfilled, that's why there is a creation of the entity of existence of evil, so that you should be able to be iskapi and ishapcha to get to the higher level. K'maimer Hazal, as the sages say, al haposik, and on the posik in Chuma, the posik says, Noira Lila al bnei Adam. that the Eibishter, sort of the Neura, the awesome one, sort of comes with a complaint for people. That means that the Eibishter wanted the Ra to be there, and then he blames people sort of why they chose Ra. And that means that the Eibishter needs the Ra so you can overcome the Ra. So he himself creates it. Zeh shehoya HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Boine olam es machriva. This that it says that Hashem were building worlds and then he was destroying them, which means he created the Toihu, and then there was Shviras HaKelim. Shekoya binyan olam hatoihu shvira. So that refers to building the world of Toihu and then breaking it. So what's the purpose? Bichdei shaha Adam. So in order that the person, Adam is specifically a Yid, Atem Kruyim Adam. You are called Adam, Adam Elyon, because they are similar to the one above, which is the Yid. So in order that the Yid, who is Adam Elyon, Yevareres HaNetzotzes, should sort out the sparks, which have not been sorted out through the sorting out that comes from above. That has to be through the person. The Yisaknem, and he should fix them. The Yalem, and he should elevate them al yidei avidosei, through his service. That way specifically is completed the Dira B'Tachtonim. So the Rebbe explains that while there is the advantage of bringing light in the place where it's dark, when the sun sets, which means when the Zov Atzilus comes down to Biyah, and specifically in Asiya itself, but there is the further level of shining up and illuminating even the other side, the Klippas, the Sitra Achra, and Hashem creates it because Hashem wants us to overcome it, and that way we get a greater light, as we said, because it fell so low, it means that it comes from so high. And the Rebbe is going to bring out, this is actually what the idea of Ner Chanukah. Ner Chanukah is to challenge the Moiredes, those rebellions, those klippas, those who are Hashem, that to bring in light over there, and that way you even get a higher level, even higher than the level of Gashmis Asiya, but to take the Moiredes and turn them into Kedusha, as the Rebbe will translate the two meanings of Kalya Riglat Tarmadoi. We should continue.